folks. Glad you're back. This is Stephanie in the Secret Place, Psalm 91, the secret place of the Most High God. That's where we've got to go. I'm glad you came back. And if this is your first time, I'm glad you're here. What I like to do is show you a book that I've been reading by David Bennett called The Gift of Being Yourself, The Sacred Call to Self-Discovery. And I've got a couple of things to say about this today. One is I'm going to read the little paragraph and then share a couple of things with you. And then I'd love to hear your comments or your questions or have you engage in dialogue with me on the comment section. Okay, so this is what Bennett says. He says, we should never be tempted to think that growth in Christ-likeness reduces our uniqueness. While some Christian visions of the spiritual life imply that as we become more like Christ, we look more and more like each other, such a cultic expectation of loss of individuality has nothing in common with genuine Christian spirituality. Paradoxically, we become more and more like Christ. As we do, we become more uniquely our own true self. And as we shall see in what follows, there are many false ways of achieving uniqueness. These all result from attempts to create a self rather than receive the gift of myself in Christ. But the uniqueness that comes from being our true self is not a uniqueness of our own making. Identity is never simply a creation. It is always a discovery. True identity is always a gift of God. Can you see why I like this guy? There's so much in there to just ponder and meditate on, think on, and then bring prayerfully to the Lord. The whole idea of our uniqueness, and when we're told that we're really going to be looking more and more like each other and acting more and more like each other, this whole false idea of being in one accord. Oh, I've heard so much of that lately, that we need to be in one accord, and that means we need to agree. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I think if you go back to the first century and when Christianity basically began to emerge, the ecclesia, the people of God gathered to follow him, started to follow Christ and started to walk a life in Christ together. There were so many disagreements. There were so many different perspectives, different ways of seeing, different ways of believing. It took several hundred years for a kind of orthodoxy to come together. And when you hear that we will eventually start looking more and more like each other and acting more like each other, the more mature we get in Christ, no, that is a cultic interpretation. I believe that's a cultic interpretation. I've had a little bit of experience with that. I've had some friends who have been outright in cults. I've known people who have kind of escaped from cults. I even had an experience, as a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to share a story on a vlog from 30 years ago of something that happened to me where we ended up leaving a church, a mega church, a small mega church. That's a crazy way of saying it. But like, before mega churches really got to be mega churches, when 2,000 people was a mega church. And we ended up leaving because the place just started getting wonky in terms of the biblical interpretation, like really wonky, and like that you needed to walk in step with one another, and you all needed to do this, and you needed to give this way, and you needed to do that. I'm getting ready to share a little bit about that after 30 years. I think that there's been enough time. So I have had experience in this too, but I love the way Bennett talks about the true self and the false self. Of course, it echoes for me with Merton. And if you've been listening or showing up here in the Secret Place for any amount of time, you've heard about Merton and the whole idea of true self and false self. But Bennett is talking about the importance of finding our identity in Christ. And that identity, knowing that we are his child, and that's my primary identity, that's who I am. I'm a child of the one who created me. I'm a child of the King of the universe. I am a child of the Father, the Lord, the giver of life. As we anchor ourselves in that identity, in that knowledge, we are also discovering our true self, right? So anchoring ourselves in God through Christ does not mean that we give up or deny or put to rest any uniqueness that is you or me. No, actually, I do think we begin to find that much more readily, much more easily when we seek God, when we go to our Maker and say, I don't understand the things that I do and why I do them, and I have conflicting feelings and ideas on my character, and I'm not solid in this area, and I don't understand this, and why am I this way? He is faithful to show us. He is faithful to uncover that truest sense of who we are, and as he does, and as we grow in who we are developing into the unique, beautiful person that each of us, that you are. You are. I like when I'm talking to the camera sometimes, I'm really speaking to you. I used to do this when I had my radio show back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was a strange feeling to be talking to an audience I couldn't see, and yet, like every Saturday morning when I had my show, I just looked at I just spoke into the microphone and just pictured the audience and really pictured the different types of people who were listening. And that's what I'm doing here today too. I'm thinking about the uniqueness of you, and some of you are frustrated and feel as though you cannot express who you are for whatever reasons, societal reasons, ecclesial reasons, student reasons, professor reasons, family reasons, just cultural reasons. You feel like you have to hide who you are. I think, before the women's suffrage movement and the women's movement, so many women felt that way, just having to hide who they were and that they had any smarts at all and that they had anything to say about anything, because the expectations, the societal expectations, were just sit down and cook and be quiet and just wash the clothes, and that you do such a good job at that, and that job needs to be done, and that is an important job. But now I digress. I was just using women as one example there. I think that the subject of identity, our false self, our true self, is something, obviously we talk about it a lot on The Secret Place. It's obviously something that warrants much more than a 5 or 10 minute blog. So as we close, let me just bring us back to what Bennett said at the end of that paragraph, which is just so powerful. Identity is never simply a creation. It is always discovery. True identity is always a gift of God. Let's remember that. You do not come out of your mother's womb just knowing who you are, right? But at 10 years old, you have a little bit of a better idea of it. Again, at 17 or at 25, at 50. But whether you're 75 or older or anywhere in between, you and I are constantly learning about who we are. True, there can be an over-focus on this kind of self-learning, but I think it's important. It helps us in all of our relationships. Let's just go forward remembering that God is the one who created us and made us, each of us, unique. He made you unique and beautiful. And if you ever find yourself frustrated and not understanding your own motivations, your own heart, your own mind, your own choices, why did I do that? Get back to the basics with God. Say, Lord, you made me. You made me, Lord. You know who I am. Show me the inner motivations of my heart. Teach me thy way, O God. And he will. Glad you came by. Thanks for coming. This is Stephanie in The Secret Place. Leave me a comment or a question. Until next time, bless you.